proud of that.
I would.
Yeah,
which is respectful. You have to work to get to that point. You know, you have to have gone through things, and it's totally cool. Yeah, so but like we're doing the 10, 15 seconds. You just give me a thumbs up, and we're good to go. So now we left off. All right.
What?
All right. So we took a quick piss/food break.
The ham was delicious,
and it was amazing. Everything was delicious. It was fantastic. So now we left off when you're in Korea, right? With the the Moose Gate.
Yeah, the Moose Gate. And the Korean that tried to kill me.
Yeah. Oh, that's where we left off. Yes. Okay, so that guy. So after that happens, because I was going to initially ask you about your first tour in Vietnam, but this is actually necessary to set this up, which is awesome. So what's up, Chris?
While you're in Korea, do you have any experience with soju? The rank taker?
No.
Must be a newer thing.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What is it?
It's like this unregulated beer that they sell.
Oh, no.
So like it could be anywhere between like 1% to like 15, I guess.
No, that was way after my time. I hadn't heard that.
What the?
Of course, you got to understand, I was there in 63, 64.
He's an old dude, man.
And
I don't know when soju came around.
You know, matter of fact, here's another. Shut up.
I'm laughing. Okay, so
he's laughing at me.
Go ahead. Hey guys, Mike B here. Just a quick little contextual caveat is this is the second episode, and if you've watched the first or listened to the first, you'll understand that it went a bunch of different routes, and it was just routes that I wasn't expecting, and I didn't know what I was walking into. And so for this episode, I told you on the last one that I had no pre-planned questions, and I still didn't during this. I just wanted it to be an ability for Don to contextualize things that we were going to talk about later on. They're written in his book, most of them, but I still wanted to kind of answer some questions because I didn't know how the conversation was going to go at first. And then once I got the first hour and I was like, okay, these things should be answered before we just go freeform. I promise you, this is the only episode that I just did these kind of directing questions. They're not leading questions. I just wanted him to answer certain things so you guys can get the context for it. And it'll be easier to, well, not easier, but, I guess easier to understand because of the context that was based in this episode. So it's not just I was sitting there interviewing him and interrogating him, because that's the exact opposite of this whole idea that I had. It's a conversation. And again, I will say this before every video is we are talking about things that are very heavy, might be triggering to you. We're talking about suicide, death, life in general, trauma, and everything like that. But this is how combat veterans actually talk to each other and how people talk to each other. So with that being said, just know that I didn't intend this to be an interrogation. I just needed context to be laid down so we could just have a completely free-flowing conversation. My first time doing this, so I made some mistakes, but I don't think this was a mistake at all. Without further ado, here we go.
Here's another interesting story about Korea.
All right.
Okay. It was one cold, wintry night, and we had all been at the club drinking, getting shit-faced, and we're all tucked away safe in our little bunks in our little Quonset hut, warm and toasty, and somebody burst in the door and said, "Get your asses out of bed, get your weapons, and get on the berm."
And you're fucked up while this is happening?
Yeah. And I'm saying, what's going on, And, we had, our weapons were locked up, We never had an occasion to use them. So nobody could figure out what's going on. Anyway, it was cold. Oh, the goddamn wind was blowing. And I think it was about 2 degrees that night. So, dutifully, we got our weapons and everything, put our parkas on and fell on the line, and they came around saying, "Shoot anything that moves." What? Wait a minute. I'm an 18-year-old kid here. I've never killed a rabbit. Okay? And you're telling me to shoot anything that moves out there? What is going on? And all of us almost collectively said, "Oh, fuck. The North Koreans have come across the border." Because we were right there at the border at Weejambu. So we thought that they had, and fortunately they didn't. But to go on with the story, we laid out there 2 or 3 hours, and it was cold and cold and cold, dying. And finally, somebody said, President Kennedy's been killed.
Oh, yeah.
November, when we were there. And have you ever had an occasion in your life that you wish you could take something back that you never said?
Yes.
This was one time in my life that I remember very well. Because, Kennedy was a very popular president. I mean, he was extremely popular. And everybody's talking, he was killed. And somebody said, where was he killed? And they said, in Dallas. Quote, I said, I'm from Dallas. Oh, you thought I'd killed him. I mean, honest to God, nobody hardly speak to me for 3 months.
But how fucking stupid is that? Like, really?
I don't know, but that's what, if I hadn't said those words, I'd have been better off.
But here's the thing, Don, is like, so that same kind of shit happens with people, like, so after 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. People who are Sikhs, they're not even Muslim at all, they're not, from the Middle East, they're from India. They were, you attacked us, and everything like that. It's like the tribal, the very, like, basic bitch kind of humanistic kind of things. And, like, in your situation, it's like, you're all Americans, you say you're from Dallas, and they just view you as the enemy now? Like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
It's that quick?
It was that quick.
It
was that quick.
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, So I was ostracized for quite a while there.
Well, it sucks as a private, too, like in a new unit.
Oh, yeah, I was a private new unit. Yeah, I hadn't been there very long at that time. But, and I was, like I said, I lived good when I was in Korea. I lived very good. So...
And then, okay, Korea.
Then I came back to the States.
Yeah, and it was all good. Like you just did your time in Korea and then came back.
I had my wife that time. We got stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there was a new general there that came in, and his name was Audrey J. Maroon. Never will forget that name as long as I live. And I don't know if they still have it now, but we were what they call a strike unit in Colorado, Fort Carson.
A strike unit?
Yeah, where we could be anywhere in the world in 36 hours.
Oh, that's changed.
Strike.
Yeah, it's changed. The 82nd Airborne is like one of those. Like
that's what we were. At that time, and he went on a big kick about PT, and I mean it got cold in Colorado, man, and I mean it was just. Let's go do PT. Out there at 6 o'clock in the morning, 2 degrees below zero, the wind blowing. You're out doing PT. I never will forget him. And another thing we had that you never knew, we probably had 2 or 3 alerts while I was there.
What?
Alerts, what they call
alerts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And they'd call everybody in, and you didn't know if you were going to war until you were on the plane, on the runway, getting ready to go.
Yeah.
And then they'd say, okay, never mind.
So what year is this again?
It was 64, I think, somewhere around there.
So you're at Carson in 64 when you get back?
64, because I went to Vietnam from Carson the first time.
But in 65?
Yeah.
So they were doing these alerts for over a year, it sounds like, or around a year?
Oh, they intermittent, Oh, yeah, they would call. It was nothing unusual, and you knew that you had to be able to be contacted within an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's how the 82nd is now. Yeah.
And everything.
Yep.
And I lived out in Manitou Springs. I don't know if you know about Colorado, but that's outside of Colorado Springs, going up into the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a car, so I hitchhiked back and forth. I was pretty good about getting rides in and out. But then I finally was able, again, I was like a PFC, so I didn't.
Yeah.
So I finally got enough money to buy this it was a 54 Mercury. That's what it was.
A boat?
Yeah, a big one. And I said, boy, I can just drive back and forth now. Well, I had it about 2 weeks, and the transmission went out. Okay. And I said, oh man, what am I going to do? So, and here's how resourceful I was. I said, well, I can't put another automatic transmission in this thing. So I'm going to convert it to a standard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 4 on the floor. Or 3 on the floor. It was 3 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
3-speed transmission.
Damn.
So I cut a hole in the floor of it, and I put the thing in there, and then I jacked the car up with bumper jacks and put stands under it.
Where'd you get the transmission?
This is in the little garage that I had off to the side of the motel-like looking thing we were living in.
But where'd you get the transmission, though?
Huh?
Where'd you get the transmission?
I got a junkyard.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, fair. Yeah.
And I had to get the bell housing, had to get the flywheels,
Yeah.
had to get, everything.
Yeah.
So, and I never liked to have figured out how to get that damn automatic transmission out of there. I don't know if you've ever taken one out.
I have not.
But
No.
you got to take that cover off, and there's all kind of bolts you got to take out, and this got to be supported over here, and that's got to be supported over here, and you got to do this, and you got to. Finally, I got it out, and it just fell on the ground, clunk. So I drug it out of there and put it aside, and I got the new bell housing and clutch and everything put in there, and I remember I had to get a spline, an adapter, to line that transmission into the clutch assembly and into the little hole that's into the back of the engine. I don't know if y'all ever been into one that deep.
No.
But anyway, it's quite a little chore to get everything aligned. So when you put that transmission in, the stab it in, it all goes in correctly.
Yeah.
Because if those holes are a little bit off, if your throw-out bearing is off,
Yeah.
or your pilot hole is screwed up. But anyway, so I got it in there and I hooked up the linkage. I had to adapt linkage and everything. So I drove that car.
So the timeline of you throwing this new transmission and like retrofitting everything.
Yeah.
What's the timeline on that? How long did it take you?
It took me about a month.
So what the fuck were you doing in the time? Were you still hitchhiking?
Hitchhiking. Yeah, hitchhiking.
Okay.
Back then, people didn't have the attitude they have about picking up somebody today.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're much more trusting society when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nobody
Yeah.
trusts anybody
That's
for
fair.
shit nowadays.
That's fair. Yep.
So that was not unusual.
And this is 64 we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Around there. Yeah.
Then I got the orders to Vietnam and drove that car down to Dallas and took my wife down there. So then I went to Heavy Land.
So, okay, let's back up just a bit. So you get this car fixed, this catastrophe of a car. That sounds like, it sounds like you jerry-rigged everything and it was just
but
terrible.
it ran.
But it ran, okay. So, okay, you get that done. And then, so in that month that you were going to get done, you go on alert and all that shit, but that's in 64 still, and early 65, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And then, around what time did you drive the car down to Dallas?
Oh, okay.
Because then you said you got orders and then you went to Vietnam. So,
Yeah, God damn it, I can't remember.
like around the time of year, like spring, it doesn't matter the month or the day.
I think it was sometime in the spring, early spring.
Of 65.
Or late winter, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I got to Vietnam that first time, it was hot as hell, and the seasons are reversed. When it's winter here, it's summer there. And when it's summer there, it's winter here. So, yeah. So anyway, it was about that time. But I remember so little about that given period of time. I don't know, it just seems so much happened.
So
much happened.
Yeah. So, okay, all right. So the trip down to Dallas, and then you went back to Carson?
When? No.
You said you took the trip down to Dallas, you dropped the car off.
Oh, yeah,
Dallas.
no, I went over straight to Vietnam, orders to Vietnam out of Dallas.
From Dallas?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're at Carson
Yeah, they,
with the car,
Right.
and that's why you were saying, okay,
Right.
you drove down to Dallas, dropped the
Yeah.
car off with your wife, and then at the time,
And
That's
then,
where her mother and her family was, you know.
Oh, so okay. The orders to go to Vietnam. So, do you remember what unit you were in by chance at that point?
In Vietnam?
No. Before, when you got the orders, like at Carson.
It was a maintenance company. I remember that. No, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's fine. But like, so you're there, and then they go, "Oh, you're going to Vietnam."
Yeah. So they give me leave. Okay, so
Mhm.
I had a 2-week leave, and I went down there and got that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was another interesting thing that I wanted to do again, but I never have had the opportunity. But I caught a train out of Dallas, okay, to Oakland, all the way to Oakland,
California?
on a train from Dallas, on Amtrak.
No, I know what you're talking about. Like, really?
Yeah, on a train,
Why?
because that's the way they sent me. That's where the Army paid for it, on a train. Okay.
This is
And
Vietnam.
then-
We're not talking about World War II, right?
No, I went on a train.
Jesus, so you would go from Dallas to Oakland on a
on a
train?
train.
Okay.
And it was a spectacular trip. I mean, they had the big gondola, you know, it was a civilian train, you know, so you could go up and see the territories. And I'd never been out, you know, over to the west or anything like that.
Mhm.
Went through New Mexico and, you know, Arizona and those areas through there. And
Yeah.
saw a lot of interesting scenes, and I enjoyed that. My wife and I were talking a while back about taking a train trip, you know, somewhere like go up to the Rocky Mountain. But you can't get there from Dallas. You got to go out of like Magnolia, Texas or something, and then you got to go to Chicago to catch another train that's going out of there, and it's just such a hassle. We hadn't done it. But that train trip out to Oakland was very interesting. I enjoyed it.
So that was your first time at that point kind of seeing the western part of the U.S.?
First time ever, and I thought, oh, it's beautiful.
But you had been, but you went out east. I remember. Yeah, you were
Well, that
Fort
was
Polk
later.
for your basic, and then
Yeah, I went to Fort Polk.
Yeah.
And that's another interesting story. I flew from Dallas to Shreveport, Louisiana
Mhm.
to start basic training.
Mhm.
And I flew on an airways called TTA, which is Trans-Texas Airways. First time I'd ever been on the plane. It was on an old converted DC-3, old Goonie bird, you know, and it flew at 10,000 feet.
Really?
Rough. Oh my God, it was rough. Yeah, just up and down like this.
Oh my God.
And I thought, oh shit, man, that's what flying about. I don't want to do it anymore. Then I caught a bus out of Shreveport down to Fort Polk.
Yeah.
And you know, they had military had arranged all these travel arrangements.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So I was just following directions. So that's got down to Fort Polk. It was just about sunset. First thing I heard was, "Get off of that goddamn bus!" My drill sergeant.
With the brown round. Yep.
Oh my God. He was a big old black man, about 6 foot and 19 feet tall.
Jeez. Yeah.
Built like a brick shit house, you know.
Yep.
And here I was, little old fucking 97-pound weakling, getting off here and don't know anybody, scared to death,
Yeah.
you know. And that's where he started calling me. He singled me out for some reson. And he got in my face right when my foot hit the ground. And he said, "Dash, get your ass over those barracks. Now, move! What's the matter with you? Move!"
Yeah.
I run like a little rabbit.
Know the feeling. Yep.
And that's the first time, and he called me Dash all the way through basic training. And if I was too scared to find out, you know, ask him what it was. So when I got out of basic training going over to AIT, I got on that local bus that was going over there, and I asked him, I said, "Sergeant, what does Dash mean? Why did you call me Dash all the time?" He says, you know, in his burly, gruffly voice, says, "Because you're a dumbass shithead." Okay, it's all clear to me now. But so I sometimes use that when I talk to people. I say, "You're a Dash," you know.
Yeah. Dash. Yeah. And everybody's like, oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that was interesting. But Sergeant Ford, he was a fine man, though. I mean, he was a man's man.
So your drill sergeant in basic, how many did you have?
I had that one main drill sergeant. We had 4, 5, 6 underlings. It depended on what day and what we were doing.
Oh, so that's how it worked then?
Yeah.
So he was like your, we call it senior today. Senior drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Is like, that's the one that stays with the platoon.
Right, and he's the one that directs all the other guys. Like if you got on like if you go into the firing range,
Yeah.
you got a company going to the firing range. You got these subordinates that help supervise, the people up and down the line.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
But when you're at your barracks, so, because you're getting fucked up in the barracks all the time.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so they had, so were your,
He was the senior drill sergeant. I think we had 2 or 3 others were buck sergeants.
right, but did they stay with your platoon?
No.
So they
They
rotated
had
them
their
out?
own. No, they stayed with us the whole time.
Okay, yeah.
But
that's
they
what I was
wasn't
asking,
with us, every day. Okay.
Okay, yeah, but they were, yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like if we had some kind of classroom instruction that day, it'd just be Sergeant Ford.
Mhm.
Organize platoon and get us in march step.
Yeah.
And
But the other drills wouldn't be there.
yeah, definitely
It was just him?
wouldn't necessarily be there.
Okay.
But if it was a more intense thing, like we're going on a 20-mile hike or
Yep.
something like
Doing
that,
a field training exercise.
the
yeah.
others would be in there. So
Okay, so that's interesting because I don't know, when I went through we had our senior, of course, and we had a junior who was with us the whole time, and then we had reservists rotating through for their AT, for their A1 training, and then when that stopped, we just had 2 drills, and
well, we never knew, other than Sergeant Ford, who was going to show up. We just did what the hell we were told to do.
well, obviously,
we
yes,
were
yeah.
too scared to ask questions.
Yeah, I
about,
mean-
well, who's going to be here today? What the fuck's it to you? Get on the goddamn
Yeah,
bus,
shut the fuck up, yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
slap me
but
around.
that's interesting that they had that dynamic different kind of back then.
And back then, they didn't have any qualms about kicking you right square in
Right.
the ass.
Right.
I'm telling you.
The physical things could
Yeah,
happen a lot
man,
more.
they'd knock your ass to the ground. You got smart
Yep.
with them.
And that's,
And
yeah.
that's where you
it's-
learn discipline and respect and yes sir and no sir and
And this is also in 63, pre
60s.
the height of the Vietnam War, where there was the draftees and stuff like that. Like the huge influx where that was more encouraged because you had to do it.
That's exactly right.
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
That's the reason I joined the Army,
Mm-hmm.
because I had a little shitty job in Dallas after getting out of high school, but I knew that I was going to be drafted because I didn't have a family. I was me by myself, and I
Yeah.
was A on the list, so I knew I was going to be drafted. But I also knew that if I joined, I get a choice of where I wanted to go or what I wanted
Germany.
to do. But if you joined and got a U.S., hell, you could end up in the Marine Corps back then.
Yep.
And I didn't want any of that, so with Paul Carter, I went ahead and joined the Army. I was going to join the Air Force.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that really quick. Because I was also going to do the same thing. I was going to join the Air Force.
Damn.
And
Biggest mistake I ever made in my life.
So, okay, let's talk about this. So you got your buddy in high school. Let's go from there. This is a great
old
story.
Paul Carter. He was a trip. He was one of those kind of nondescript guys that he tried to run a lot of bluffs a lot of times. And make a long story short, I didn't have much trust in anything he was going to do. And I went up with him, and he was working on his private pilot's license and wanted me to go up with him, and I did. And first time he went into a stall and dropped to the ground, heading toward the ground. I said, nope, no more airplane for me, and definitely no more riding with him.
Yep.
Okay. So I ran into him about 20, 25 years later. He found me somewhere or another. I don't know how he did it, but anyway, come to find out, he ended up being the corporate pilot to a jet in Pizza Hut. And I would have never believed anybody would have rode with him in an airplane. Okay.
So what the hell? How did he get you to join the Army? That's the thing.
That's the end of the story. Because I had already gone down, and I'd already taken all my tests and everything, got in the Air Force, and I had like a 111 GT or something like that. And they tried to send me to officer school, but I'm blind on my right eye, so I don't qualify to be an officer.
What do you mean blind in your right? Like, are you actually like completely blind in your right eye?
If I close this eye, everything is a blur. I can't see anything. If something moves, I can see motion.
Motion, yeah.
but I can't tell you whether it's a bus or a dog.
But that's been that way your whole
It's
life?
all my whole life.
How the fuck did you get through the medical
Well,
exam?
that's an interesting story too. And that
Okay,
has to-
yeah. We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But anyway, Paul Carter came to me, and I was, matter of fact, the next week I was going to go down and get in the Air Force and go to basic and everything. And he come in there, he said, Don, he said, listen, why don't we, join the Army and we can go in on the buddy plan.
Don't ever do it. For people who are listening, don't ever do it.
And I said, well, I've already taken everything for the Air Force, and well, they can just transfer that over. And I really didn't want to go in the Army, but he kept asking, And another thing was that because the way I grew up
Yeah.
kind of alone, and I was scared. And I thought, well, if I go in the Army with him, at least I'll have somebody I know that I can go through this with. Okay?
Yep.
So that part of it made sense to me. Big mistake, big mistake.
Yep.
Okay, big mistake.
Yep.
So anyway, that's how I ended up in the Army. It wasn't my first choice, but it was.
So how the fuck did you get through?
Okay.
Did they have like maps back then?
What?
Map. Oh, like the entry, like you go to this thing and you get your medical and physical stuff
Yeah,
done.
a complete physical.
Yeah. So how the fuck did you get?
Well, I got disqualified, and
Well, obviously you
I
didn't.
said, they classified me as medically not suitable for the military, and I said, I really don't have any options at this point because I'd quit my job, and I was just, a week away from going, into the Air Force. So I got this physical, and he said, well, the doctor said, well, take this form and go to the eye doctor and see if he can say something to the effect that your other eye is good enough that this one won't make any difference.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So that's what I did. And the doctor said, blah, 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 blah. And I took it back down there, and they said, okay, you're in the Army. So when I joined the Army, they gave me what they call a P3 profile. You know what profiles are?
I know profiles. I know what P3 is.
It's permanent.
Oh.
Permanent E3 profile. Eyes, permanent. Never going to get any
So what
better.
the fuck?
So, see, I have, in my right eye, I have a problem called amblyopia, which is a common man term is lazy eye. When I was younger, my eyes, if my left eye would have been covered for a period of time, it made this eye work more.
Oh.
It would have developed.
Oh.
But because my left eye was dominant and it overshadowed my right eye just said, well, I'm going away. So I developed this permanent disability from my right eye. So I couldn't, and the profile, this is interesting. I've still got it in there. I can show it to you.
Yeah.
It said, I can recite this verbatim almost. You have a P3 profile. No driving of military vehicles. No firing of weapons. No duties that require a good binocular vision. Okay. So, you see what happened. Okay. Went to war, fired weapons, and the funny thing about it was I fired expert because I shoot left-handed. And
Wait, we gotta back up, Don. Like, okay, we gotta, because I don't understand how the fuck they even sent you to basic training with that profile, right?
Well, you got to go through basic training.
No, yes, I get that. I understand that, Don. But like, this is 63.
Yeah.
The draft isn't at its full capacity, right?
Yep.
They're not in Vietnam. They can be selective. How the fuck do they allow you to go through?
They paid no attention to the profile.
What?
And I, back then, instead of it's almost like playing the race card. Okay, I've got this disability. I can't do this. And, you know, back then I didn't think about even showing them that.
Showing
I
them
just assumed they
But
knew.
they didn't know either.
Well, they don't see your medical records, and I just
You
went
were
through.
saying that. You're right.
I just went through like everybody else did, and nobody knew any different.
Fuck, you're right,
And
Chris.
I didn't know any different.
Well, because I
And
thought they
got
would
to
look
it.
at that shit when we went down to basic and shit, but I guess they don't because they didn't do it for you. They didn't do it for me, obviously.
And yeah, of course, in the basic, they're not paying any.
Yeah, you're
attention.
there.
You're a warm body.
Yeah,
you
if
know.
you're there, you're
That's it.
you're there. Yeah, and
And
so okay, yeah, let's get to this. So you are down there. Your right eye is not great. So you shoot lefty.
yep, not you dead on.
Did you shoot
300
before
yards.
you joined the military?
Never fired a weapon in my life.
Okay, and then you shot expert. Okay, you're one of those guys. All right. So all right, explain how that went. Just qualification in itself with the M1.
That was interesting. We'd been practice shooting and everything, but then it came to actual qualification on the range. I was shooting out there 300 yards, and I was laying them in dead center, man. No problem. We actually zeroed, like I was telling you, at 25 yards.
We still do that. Yep.
And I didn't know if y'all still did that or not, but
Yep.
it got really accurate out 250, 300 yards, you know.
Mhm.
Past that, you'd have to adjust for your elevation,
Windage,
or
yeah.
something like
Elevation,
that.
Yep.
But primary elevation. But
Yep.
I was firing just good, and all of a sudden that thing kicked extra hard. And I said, oh, man, that must have something wrong. That's a hot round or something. So I said, okay. So I pulled the trigger again, and it kicked even harder. And I said, damn. So I looked at it, you know, to see if anything was wrong, and I couldn't see anything. So the DI came down there and said, what's your problem, Stout? I said, there's something wrong with this weapon. And he said, there's nothing wrong with that, it's you, you know. You're a dash. I said, okay,
Yeah.
go on. Keep it up. So anyway, he said, shoot it again. And I fired it again. And we had these cement manholes.
Yeah, the ones that you
Concrete
stand
covers.
up in
Yeah.
with
you
the
stand up-
sandbags and
yeah.
shit. Yeah, yeah.
And it damn near turned me around in there. And I put it down. And he said, what's the matter with you? And I said, there's something wrong with this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that weapon. And I said, he said, shoot it again. I said, I'm not shooting it again.
No. You're.
That's
Yeah.
what I said. I said, I'm
Yeah.
not shooting it again.
Yep.
And he said, give me that weapon. So I unloaded it and bing, you know.
Yep.
I don't know if no M1.
I own
Okay.
two of them. Yes.
All right.
I love them. Yep.
But I got a bad M1 thumb one time too, but that's another story. But anyway, he took it and he looking at it and everything, and he stopped a minute and he had looking at the end of the barrel. And the end of the barrel had split about an inch and a half up under the sight.
Oh, and it was peeling back farther.
Yeah, and it
With
was
each
peeling
round.
back fire every time I fired it.
Oh.
You know? And he said, I never will forget it. You know, are you okay? No. He said, you're going to pay for this. That's what he said. You're going to pay for this weapon.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
You stuck it in the mud. What? You saw me. I've been shooting it.
Yeah.
It was working fine. How could I possibly stuck it in the fucking mud? He said, doesn't make a difference. You're going to pay for it. So I sure thought, you know, statement of charges.
Yep.
And I never did end up paying for it. They never did charge me for it.
Well, because he didn't break it.
Oh, it was a fault.
It was fucked.
That's what I said. I just guess it had been fired so many times in his life. It was said, I quit.
Well, they did. They probably just didn't replace it. They're like, oh, we'll just send this off to
Well,
for
it went
basic
to
trainees.
M14s after that.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
You know.
Well, because you were at the very tail end of the M1s, and
Tail
we're like,
end.
oh, well, it doesn't fucking matter. They'll get used a couple more times, and then they're good. But
Yeah.
they're not. And so,
But it was a good firing rifle. Never jammed. Accurate.
yeah, they're
A little bit on the heavy
so
side.
okay for my YouTube channel viewers who are going to be watching this. I made a lot of videos on this. Explain exactly in detail how you got M1 thumb. I just because
'Cause
we
I
may
was
disagree.
stupid.
Yeah, okay, because you were stupid. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
When you have an M1, got an 8-round clip. Not a magazine, it's a clip.
Yep.
You have to pull the bolt back Hello, buddy. And you have to take this clip, force it down in there with your thumb. You'll feel it click. And then you pull your thumb out, and the bolt slams forward. Bang! And if you don't get your thumb out in time, that bolt takes your thumb with it and bursts it. And just explodes your thumb. So that's what an M1 thumb is. Painful? Oh, God. And then it ranged when this happened. I still had to load those clips in there after that. I had blood running down inside there.
So, okay. This actually is interesting because, so that was the last time you used M1s as a basic, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so you got the M14 and then
Yeah.
the M16 eventually. Because my whole point was, unless an M1 rifle is completely fried and fucked and like past the point of it's flatlined, right?
Yeah.
When you actually push the clip in there, like on my two and everybody, all my friends, the bolt just rides and it kind of hits the background like this. It does not slam forward. If the springs and everything are fried, it will.
I don't know what it was, but I know it was extremely painful.
Fucking hurt, yeah. And if you got a fried M1, I mean, that's fine. So
And the term M1 thumb didn't come from just my single incident.
no, I know. There's a bunch of people, but most of the time, so I'm just gonna be the asshole here, and I'm gonna say, on my M1s and like the other things, is the only time you can get an M1 thumb, unless your rifle's fried, which yours obviously were because your fucking barrel was gone.
Split.
But I'm saying like they're fried, they're flatlined. The only time you can get that, in my opinion, not a fact, is if you're doing it on inspection arms and you're doing it on an empty chamber and you happen to hit the follower and then not take your thumb out in time on an empty magazine well.
That could have happened. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but the only thing I knew was it hurt like hell.
Yeah, no, you got
And
hurt
I was-
because you had a flatline rifle.
Yeah, it was just.
That was the sloppy thirds. That wasn't even the sloppy seconds because it probably went through World War II, Korea, and
Yeah, it would be wonderful to know the history of that rifle. Where it'd been.
yeah, if you remember your serial number and everything, you could run the. But here's the thing: is the receiver. A lot of them got rebarreled. So it's like even if you had the receiver number, but you could probably tell if it went
could
through, World War II and Korea and then got rebarreled and then it was just flatlined. But okay, so we're in basic training. You got basic training. Now let's go back to you get your orders for Vietnam in '65.
Yeah.
Early '65, we'll say spring, just for the sake of kind of whatever. What are your first? So you said there was alerts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Through '64 into '65.
Yeah. But when
So-
I got orders in Vietnam, it didn't make a difference. I just.
So you were
Vietnam.
you were sort of expecting it.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I was expecting it because so many of the guys were getting orders. And
So
I
when
thought,
you got yours, were you finally just kind of like, okay, fine, finally it's fucking happening, or
No,
What were you thinking?
it was funny because I was not afraid
Mhm.
to go. As a matter of fact, I think I was a little bit excited
Mhm.
because
Yep,
I'm going to experience war,
there we go. Yep.
So it's kind of like a rush of adrenaline.
Yes.
Boy, I'm going to, do all this stuff. And so I wasn't afraid to go, and I was, as a matter of fact, kind of anxious to go. I wanted to see what this was all about. Plus, I get to see part of the world and everything.
Mhm.
And so then I get there, and that was another story. I had no idea what war was while I was there on that first tour. But
Let's go into that because it is important. Actually, I think it's very important because a lot of people had tours like that, and there is something that I want to talk about once we get done with the tour. So, explain if you would. You're flying to Vietnam. You get there, and then what happened and what your experience was.
We flew out of Oakland, went into Alaska, and then down to Alaska, down to Vietnam, and landed at Benoit at the 90th replacement down there. And when that door opened and we got off, I don't think I'm unusual in saying this because I've heard a lot of comments about it. But that initial blast of heat and the stench is just something. I mean, I grew up in Texas. I know what heat is, okay? But that heat is different. It has a slamming factor that just almost feels like somebody has just body punched your whole body at one time. And then you get a whiff of it and you say, oh my God, I've got a year of this. And it doesn't get any better as time goes on, but that was my initial things about getting off that plane. And then I stayed at Longben there at the 90th Replacement Company for a few days, and I got my orders up to Fubai, which is next to Hue, where the 3rd Marine Division is stationed, and I thought, oh boy. So anyway, I get up there, and I'm supply sergeant, E6 this time. So I'm thinking, here we go. So when we land at Fubai, I took a Caribou up there, as a matter of fact. That aircraft that I was telling you about.
Oh, yeah. The little one.
Yeah, that smaller two. So it's not a 123, it's smaller than that. But anyway, we landed, and I got off that, and here I am. Okay. Nobody told me where to go, nothing. And I'm just standing and basically in the middle of the road looking up
with
and down.
With your toe up your ass, just like,
yeah. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? So I was actually assigned to the 8th RRU, which I don't know what the hell that was. It was Radio Research Unit. Basically, it was a CIA spy station early on. I didn't know that. I was curious. I think back, why did I get assigned there? I mean, but I had a top secret clearance.
Oh.
When I went through into basic training, I had to fill out all these papers, and I was the enlist, No, because I didn't know it, and they'd given me a top secret, so that's why they assigned me to this base. And I thought, okay, so I'm a supply sergeant going in there, and they've got nice living facilities. They got paved streets. They got NCO club, and I'd see all these people running around in civilian clothes.
Oh, shit.
What is this, Yeah. But long story short, that's what everybody did. I mean, you worked an 8-hour day, then you were off, unless you were one of the people listening on the radios and working shifts, But my day consisted of 8 hours. We didn't work on the weekend. Saturday and Sunday, we were off. Had a good NCO club there, and I thought the shades of Korea. And I never heard the whole time I was there. Well, the time I was there for the 7 months, I never heard shot fired in anger. Never. I actually performed guard duty several times. Never anything happened. And we were right across the street from the 3rd Marine Division. And they were always out in the field, Now, I don't know what happened after that, but I know while I was there, there's nothing going on. And every night it seemed like they had steaks going out on the grills, and people went and put on civilian clothes. And matter of fact, I've got several pictures of it. And,
in this stack, or?
I don't know if it's that one or this one. But so I said, that's okay. I can live like this.
So it seemed like more of just a day job, just in a different country.
Like a civilian job in a different country, So I didn't feel anything, All the weapons were locked up in my supply room,
So not a shot fired. There was no contact whatsoever.
No contact whatsoever, and we had a good mess hall, and everything was kosher. And I said, "Well, this is what war is all about.
Oh.
I can handle this."
This is why I wanted to bring this up because yes, and so I can't find them right there.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
I'll show them in a minute.
So you're sitting there going, "Oh, this is just like working just abroad."
Yeah.
Were you in civies or you were in? What did you have?
No,
Jungle
I
fatigues
had
at that
uniform.
point?
No, we had regular
The
fatigues.
OG 107s? Yeah.
Yeah, the
Or,
regular
I'm sorry, yeah,
fatigues. We didn't have jungle fatigues.
the straight pocket.
Yeah, the straight
yeah.
pockets. I've got a picture of me sitting in a chair in there somewhere that you can see the fatigues really well when you can get in there. But anyway, I was there and I was having trouble with my left eye.
Okay.
Because it was starting to, I guess, flake out on me or something. So went down to the eye doctor. I think I had to fly down to Da Nang because there wasn't one up in that area. And he looked at me and he's looking at my medical records there and he's saying, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" I said, "They sent me here." And he said, "Well, I'm sending you home." And I said,
shit.
"What? I said, what's going on?" He said, "You got a profile here that you have no business being here with this kind of profile.
Oh, so
You
he's
should
the one
have
that looked.
never been sent here."
Okay.
So I only spent 7 months, something like that, on my first tour over there. So loaded up on a plane and came back. And that
All
was
right.
my first tour in Vietnam.
Yeah, so let's back up just a little bit because I was looking through. I haven't found the picture of you sitting there. So you're sitting there in 65 going, well, shit.
65, 66.
Yep.
Yep.
You're going, well, shit. This is just a day job.
Yeah.
Man, shit, this is a war? Like,
I said, this is okay.
fuck. Like, yeah, and then things happen and, you get sent home.
And honestly, I would have never believed there was a war going on.
Right, because you were in an area that at that point in time
Yep.
was pretty quiet.
Really
Even though there
quiet.
was shit
And you
going
had-
on around the country, but it just was not
And
right
the other
there.
thing
right
is,
then.
you had the 3rd Marine Division across
Yeah.
the street from us.
Anything that would
So there
be
was
fucked with,
nothing
yeah.
going on in our area.
Yeah,
You know?
they would take care of it way outside of
Yeah.
So
and
okay, you did 7 months there, right?
Yep.
So you're getting on the plane, coming back.
Yep.
What's
No.
going through your head?
Oh, I missed a whole segment about Korea. I got the troop ship coming back.
Oh,
from
well,
Korea.
we can talk about that. We can
Yeah,
talk about
okay.
that in a bit.
All
But like right now, we're on your first tour in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think we should.
I'm at
just
the end
skip
of my first tour now.
Yeah, the end of your first tour.
Yeah.
So
Nothing happened.
what's going through your head though as you're on the plane home?
I was somewhat upset that I didn't get to complete the tour. Because at heart, I'm not a quitter,
Mm-hmm.
And I felt a lot of guilt in coming home when I did and the way I did. Because I didn't really have anything, to talk about that anybody be interested in.
Right.
And what I did. And I didn't really realize, I didn't really understand until several years after I got back what the RRU was.
Right.
That it was a spy company,
Yeah.
and I found
There's
out.
no way to know that. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that because,
Yeah.
you got to need to know.
Yep.
And I didn't need to know. I just did my job and everything was kosher. And everything was okay.
But so when you're coming home, you just felt guilt.
Felt
Well,
a lot of guilt.
Not completing. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I get back and I get sent up to Fort Devens in Massachusetts. And this was late 66.
6.
Yeah.
I think you wrote that in, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think
late
it was 66.
66.
Yeah.
And I got assigned to, of all places, the hospital there. And I became the supply sergeant of the hospital out at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And I said, okay, well, that's all right. Easy duty, really easy duty, Got the chance to go into Boston. That's the picture I was talking about.
Oh, look at you.
That's how easy it was. Just like that.
That is the OG 107.
Yeah.
Or the Satine, like, The old school uniform.
You see the hat?
Oh yeah, it's the
baseball cap?
Yep, the baseball cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
You look so happy.
Oh,
Everything's all right.
Everything's good, man.
Yep. And you got a fucking combat patch at this point, even though you might feel some guilt about it a little bit, whatever. But you still have a combat patch. Like that's a big thing.
I didn't have a combat. I had a MacV patch.
Well, we call it a combat patch. Like you have a right shoulder patch.
Yeah, right shoulder.
So you done a tour in a combat zone.
Yeah.
And whatever.
But it wasn't with a combat unit.
No, but like you still have that patch on your right shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy's been over there. He's done that. For all the new guys that are looking at you, and you're like, yeah, but that's.
But I don't know anything about it. It was just.
Right.
I was so sheltered. So sheltered, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody there was. I mean, it was just like a regular stateside base.
Yes. You know? And so, okay, so you get back. Before you go to Massachusetts, what's going on with like anybody bringing up the profile shit with your eyes or anything in the States? No, nobody? So you get sent home because of that doctor.
Yep.
And then nothing is brought up after that?
Nothing was brought up after that. And that's why I was, I tell you, I came home with a lot of guilt for not completing that tour. And I fought with myself for months. And then finally I said, I talked to my wife, my first wife at that time, that was such a useless piece of living tissue. But anyway, another story.
We'll get there.
I talked with her and I told her, I said, my soul is not well. I don't feel good about how this came about and why I came home early. I don't feel like I did my duty the way that I should have, and I feel that I need to go back. And she said, well, how are you going to go back with this profile? I said, I don't know. I'm going to put in a 1049. You know what a 1049 is?
No.
1049 is a request for reassignment.
Okay.
Okay. So I said, I'm going to put in a 1049, go back to Vietnam. She said, well, that's what you feel you have to do. You know, you got to do it. So I did, and I didn't think I'd ever, you know, with this, all they had to do was look at my records and see what had happened, why I was sent home to begin with. And they never sent me back, you know.
Yep.
Lo and behold, apparently nobody looked, nobody cared. This was at the big build-up in '67.
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
And they rubber stamped it. You're gone. So I said, okay. So took my wife back down to Dallas and the kids, and they stayed with her mother for a while. And I went to Vietnam. And again, landed at Benoit, 90th Replacement Company. And I was there for about a week, and we were just trying to find something to do with ourselves there. There was nothing to do, except you'd hear mortars come in occasionally down there. Being an airfield, you know, they'd, you know, nail those all the time.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Sure.
So since you had, so you're in '67 now, so a lot of guys have been to Vietnam and they're on their second tour. So when
Not
you're
a
at,
lot. There wasn't a lot on the second tour.
Okay, this is part of the question, which is great because that's part of the answer. You had a what we call a combat patch. That's what we call it now. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
yep, the right shoulder patch. So you've got that. A couple other guys have that. What's going on with the attitude in the replacement or the battalion like there?
Well,
did they look at you as like experienced or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they kept asking me, you know, questions about, you know, what's it like out there, and I said, I wish I could tell you because I honestly don't know.
Gotcha.
You know, and so, you know, they all thought I'd come up with all these war stories and, you know, and couldn't help them out. That's just the way it was. I didn't know.
So other guys in your
there were a few guys in there that were second tour, and there was a few guys third tour.
Yeah.
Those were idiots. You know.
I mean, I'm not gonna.
You know.
Disagree with that.
A couple of schools of trains of thought here.
Yeah.
And that the guys who were like stationed as Icon, who lived in hotels, who, you know, I mean, in admin and things like that, you know, I mean, they'd come back and they lived great there. I mean, they got, you know, hazardous duty pay and everything, just like I did.
Doing shit.
And, you know, so they come back for a third term. okay, a fourth or whatever they wanted to get away from their wife. But then there's a flip side of that coin, that you have the really maniacal people that are fucked up in the head that just want to go out and kill something, and who want to go back in the country, and they keep going back until they get killed. So
do you think that's all they know, or they're comfortable with it, or you said maniacal? Yeah.
Yeah, there's something wrong with them.
How do you think?
They're predatory.
Mm-hmm.
I hate, this is kind of a misnomer, but I don't want to say they show an absence of fear, but doesn't seem to bother them. I mean, and you could say that, well, anybody who wasn't scared, you're not telling. Yeah, well, yeah, there are some people that don't. Did you see what's his name in Platoon? The guy that
Barnes.
Yeah. Yeah. He was one of them.
I've met people like that on my deployment. Like legit, there's 2 people I've met that are ever like that, and when you meet them, it's a different vibe, I guess.
Different vibe, yeah.
Yep.
And you don't want to piss them off.
No, but if you're on the good side, they'll protect you. They'll, yeah. And so, okay, so that's what you're kind of talking about?
That was the 2 types of people I saw coming back.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
There were the people that had really easy jobs and could get those easy jobs again, coming back and get extra pay, and all that other stuff.
And fuck a bunch
and then
of
then there's the maniacs who that's what they live for, is to kill something.
They love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have, I'd say, much more of the admin people want to come back than the other people that come back.
So you're in the replacement battalion, and you've got the combat patches on, and the guys that are asking you, hey, what's it like here? You and the other guys that were in Saigon or wherever had an image of, they're not getting the answers they want. Do they actually talk to the other guys that are psychotic?
Most of the guys won't even talk to them.
Okay, so
the psychotic guys won't even talk to these newbies.
Yep, fuck them.
Fuck them.
Don't want to get to know your name? Nope, not worth it? Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's the 2 kind of people I saw coming back.
Yeah, all right.
And people like me who felt that he was on a guilt trip.
Well, yeah, yeah. So, all right, so you get through the, so this is your second tour. You're in, this is November of '67, right?
Yeah.
You get back.
Yeah. I land there and
Yep.
you have formations every morning.
Accountability.
And then, and they also call out assignments where people are going. Because remember, we did not, these are all individual replacements, and they're going to different units all over the country.
Okay.
So you don't come in as like a unit and
right.
go to one thing.
No, I do know that. Okay. So can you, after we explain this, I gotta take a piss break.
Okay.
But I want, because people don't know this, I do know this, but like a lot of people won't. You're at this replacement battalion, and so at this time, really quick, do guys know where they're going and have unit patches on at this point? Okay, there you go. So, okay, carry on, like what you were saying.
Okay, you want to go piss?
Oh no, I'll piss in like 5 minutes because I think that's good. That's a good place to take a.
But I wouldn't know. No, they don't know where they're going.
So it's just people are just there, and
yep.
Like
depending on what MOS you are, like if you were a medic, you could end up anywhere from a line unit to a hospital in Saigon.
Right.
So you don't know until your name is called out. So about 5th or 6th day I was there, I thought, maybe I might, go back up there or where I was before.
Yep.
Or get, some rear echelon job being a supply sergeant.
Just a supply sergeant.
Sure. And they called me out and they said, Stout. Donald M. It says Staff Sergeant Stout, Donald M. Company A, 2nd of 22nd Infantry, 25th Infantry Division. And you could hear everybody groan.
Like going,
oh, this guy's fucked,
That's not good.
That's not good.
Oh, fuck.
That's not good.
That's really not good.
Okay.
I mean, like that. So when you hear that, what is going through your mind?
Heart failure.
Well, that's
I was
spoil the
smart.
story, Don. Come on.
I was smart enough to know that when it said infantry, this
You're
was not
fucked.
going to be good. You know.
Oh God. So okay, but what do you remember about like when they and the groaning and all that shit? What is going through like? What do you feel at that point? Like your body and everything.
Almost panicked.
Yeah.
Almost panicked because, you know, I wasn't sure about any of this. So I calmed down and got my shit together and went and got on the what was it? It was a chopper. Yeah, it was a chopper.
Was it a shit hook?
No, I think this was a hop on a Huey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was, and we got into. They were going to Coochie, which is
Yeah.
the base camp
For 25th.
of the 25th
Yep.
Division, the main base camp.
That I do know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then from there, I was sent on up to Dao Tiang,
Yeah.
which is up by the Iron Triangle. and which, don't get me started on that.
No, we'll discuss that later because that's funny as shit. That whole thing. But yeah, okay. So yeah, you're up. So here's Coochie, if I remember correctly from your map, and then Dao Tiang is up here
Yeah, Coochie is northwest
in the east. I'm sorry.
up in of Saigon.
Of Saigon, yes.
Yeah.
And then Dao
20
Tiang is
clicks.
like
Yeah,
a little bit
and
north
then,
and east of
Dao Tiang,
Coochie.
and it's by the Michelin River Plantation.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then you got Tay Nin, which is the other camp for, and that's where we used to run supply convoys up to Tay Nin and back and forth all
Right.
the time. This is where my monkey got electrocuted.
Well, we're gonna get there, Don. The little teasers you give me. So okay, you're in Vietnam the second time, and now you've got the feeling that this might be a little bit different than the first time.
Well, I know when I flew from Coochie, took another Huey up to Dao Tiang, you fly over it, and you say, my God, what have I gotten myself into? Because you could see the Michelin Rubber Plantation.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful down there. And actually, Dao Tiang was an old French
Yep. Indochina.
Indochina type thing. And the French had built a lot of permanent buildings there, in that area. Not a whole lot, but they did enough. And they had a big swimming pool there. It was all above ground. And the swimming pool was 13 feet deep. And then the officers had another swimming pool somewhere. I never saw it. But this was the enlisted swimming pool. But I didn't get to go down there for 6 months or so. And then I got ran out by the mortars. So, but it was a desolate, dry place. And when I went over to report to the company, I was originally assigned to A Company of the 2nd Battalion, 22nd Infantry. And when I went in there to report in, of course, everybody lives in tents over there, GP medium tents.
Fucking stupid.
And it was, at least they had wood floors. Most of them had wood floors.
I mean,
Saving grace, okay?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But I reported in that day, and the first sergeant was there, and I met him, and we immediately butted heads, because he said, I remember I hadn't said hello, nothing, basically to him, and he said, I want you to know you're not sitting in that goddamn supply tent. I'm going to send your ass to the field. And I was like, whoa.
That's the first thing he says to you.
Huh? Yeah, that's the first thing he said to me.
You're fucked at that point. Like,
And I said, whoa, well, let's back up a minute. I said, did I do something, to piss you off? You don't have to do anything. I just fucking don't like you to begin with. And this kind of shit. And it just went back and forth and back and forth. So I finally just said, okay, First Sergeant, okay, I got to go report in or whatever. I got to go get my shit together. So I went over there to where the supply shack was. And actually, the supply room in the A Company was a half-wooded building with screen around it.
oh shit.
It was a pretty decent-looking little thing. I said, okay, well, maybe it's not going to be so bad.
Yeah.
And That's when I heard my first rocket. I was going in there and bam!
Boom!
And I said,
Yep.
what the fuck is that? I said, no, it's just a rocket. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I was there. I wasn't there, I don't guess, 30 days. And I'd been to the field several times by then, the first sergeant. So I kind of ignored him after a while. But one day we got into it, and it was goddamn near a fist fight. And he said, well, I don't want you here anymore. And I thought, I don't want to be here anymore, you know?
Easy.
So he had me transferred over to headquarters company, which is just 2 streets over.
Mm-hmm.
But I went over there, reported in, and man, I had a GP medium tent for a supply tent. There was no filing cabinets. There was nothing. It did have a wooden floor, but a GP medium tent, it was full of holes. It had more holes than it had tent. But I didn't know it at that particular time, but the supply sergeants that I was replacing had been killed in a mortar attack there. And I didn't learn this till after I left Vietnam, but the guy that replaced me was killed about a month after I left there. So before and after they were killed, and I survived, barely, but I did. But anyway, I reported, and that supply tent was just miserable. And there was a little section of it back there, about as big as this room. And I had it wasn't big, this big, it was about half this big. But anyway, I had a bunk in there and a little locker thing, wooden locker thing to hang my fatigues in.
And that's where you kept this? Or you kept it under your bunk?
Yeah, I kept that under my bunk.
Yep.
Yeah. And I, like the first month or so, I didn't keep a diary. And then after it was exactly, I think, 43 days, I decided I needed to keep one because I wanted somebody to know what went on here if I didn't survive as long as I did. And I thought, well, I could read this when I get pompous in my old age and become a little more humble. But anyway, I started keeping that. But there was just like a crate for a desk, and it was just kind of miserable overall. And it went downhill quickly from there. Because a lot of things happened to me over there that were just happenstance. I just happened to be where I shouldn't have been.
So let's recap how you got there is, okay, you were at Fort Carson.
Yeah.
You drive your car down to Dallas, drop it off. You go to, where in?
Oakland.
Oakland, California.
On a
You
train.
fly up to Alaska. You go to Vietnam.
And land at 98th replacement.
Yep. You're there for how many
5
days?
days.
5 days. And then you get that.
I think it's when they couldn't figure out what to do with me.
Right. Like then you get the fucking news.
Then I get the news.
You're going to 25th ID, bud.
Well,
And then you're there, and it's a catastrophe.
it is.
It's a colossal goat fuck.
We were a mechanized infantry
Yeah,
division.
25th, yep.
And the mechanized simply is we had tracks, what they call tracks, 113s and the 115 command tracks, you know.
Yep.
And this is another story, but they were all gasoline tracks.
Yeah,
at
we'll
that
get into
time.
that. Well, I think we'll get into that
So
later.
we won't talk about that
Yeah,
now.
we'll but that is something I want to talk about because you have a lot of experience with those. So to recap is you get into Vietnam on your second tour and you go, oh fuck. That's what it seems like when you said you got like the groans. You're like,
and that that guilt complex that I felt for not going back kind of thinned out, and I thought, oh, what am I doing here? You know,
what the fuck?
but I got anyway.
Yeah, I think we'll go into some more shit after a piss break. I think we can call it a night. It's 21:31, so.
Is that 9:31?
Yeah, 9:31. Yep.
Is that
Sorry.
what it is?
I still have my shit set for 24 hours. It's easier. All right.